Greetings, hello, welcome back to Long War of the Chosen and my big class ramble campaign review. I don't know what to call it. We're gonna just go through our list of soldiers and I'm gonna just spew out whatever comes to my mind when looking at the individual classes and whether or not the specs worked or didn't work, or it was fun to play them or not fun, anything like that. Keep in mind though, a lot of these classes I might have played for the first time. Of course, with the Highlander restriction of 1 soldier per class, we also only got to experience 1 spec for each soldier, so maybe I just choose poor one and that didn't quite perform as well, or maybe I choose the wrong perks, Certainly looking at the comments, I'm always choosing the wrong perks, but that's just the way it is. What else? So this is after the network count, just so you know, kind of from the mission and kill count. And talking about kill count, maybe you wanna speculate a little bit in the comments. There are only 2 soldiers in the whole roster that have a triple-digit kill count. Maybe pause the video, make a tip, make a prediction who these 2 soldiers are that actually have more than 100 kills. I'll share the results later. So for now, let's just start at the top. And we're gonna go to the abilities and then let the ramble begin. So the Heretic. Definitely a very unique class. I don't think the damage really was there, although that might have been also tainted by the fact that we for a long time didn't really have the good melee weapon upgrades. I think it took really long until we got the tier 3 gauntlets, so it's kind of lagging behind. Pistol damage, of course, also not very high, and I feel like the whole build with Ghost Bullet only really pays off once you got to Master Sergeant. So which was just a few missions. Like the single action stun from Lethargy just means that even if you're flanking the enemy and they only have a single action, they will just shoot. They will not walk out of the flank. They will usually then just accept being flanked and shoot at you. Which is interesting because if you have an enemy that you flank and you disarm them, you could think then, yeah, then a disarmed enemy will just reload and shoot, but no, they will walk out of the flank and then reload. So that they don't realize that they don't get to do anything offensive, while as an enemy with a single action usually just says, okay, I'm flanked, I don't care, I shoot. So single action stun, it's limited use. Now it does have some use, as in with the Requiem enemies, to just shut down their reaction, right, by stunning them if they're not stun immune. So that's kind of nice. And also with Void Conduit is of course a strong form of control, so that was kind of helpful. It's a little bit late though on Gunnery Sergeant. On the Templar, I think it's coming, I want to say Staff Sergeant, somewhere sooner, definitely. So compared to a Templar, I think it's definitely weaker. Then again, Templar is a so-called hero class. I haven't played around with any of the other specs yet. In the current campaign that we're running on Twitch, we're having a Heretic there where I'm trying out the Shadow build, but I haven't, of course, leveled to Master Sergeant yet, so we will have to see how effective that's going to be. And of course, there's the more tanky spec here, and that's just not my cup of tea. Other than that, respectable kill and mission count here. I think anything with a kill ratio of more than 3 per mission is actually not too bad. Then again, it could also be a lot of it is always, of course, if you have a class that's just picking up the weak targets, they will have an inflated kill count. But so it's not always the best indicator for class. All right, I think I need to talk less about the classes, because otherwise we're going to be here for hours. The Bishop. So there's a little bit of clunkiness with where you can't really do much if you don't have focus. And we even ran into the situation where basically we didn't have focus, we didn't get a kill with our breath, so our breaths were on cooldown. All attacks were on cooldown that could generate for. We just couldn't do anything, right? You could just run around and shield wall and hope that you get then the focus from being attacked, and that felt a little bit awkward. There are situations where the bishop definitely shined, like I think that invasion mission almost felt kind of unkillable. Almost felt like tanking actually worked, but just almost. And I think there's a lot of potential here on trying different things. Like, this build looks like it's all over the place, and I don't think we got to use Ionic Storm. I think we got one Ionic Storm off, and only because I wanted to, not because it was the right thing at that time. So definitely a class I'm looking forward to playing a little bit more with in the future. It does have the clunkiness, and I'm going to mention that probably for every shield class, where you have the situations where suddenly you can't walk through a door or through a window because the shield is out of cover, and now the game doesn't realize the shield's no longer there and you can't walk through the door anymore. That's more an XCOM problem than a bishop problem. So yeah. But again, also we had that same issue as with the Heretic, that we didn't have upgraded gauntlets for a while, so we were lagging a little bit behind there. But you know what? That's also not a bad kill count. Then again, we were feeding kills to the breath attacks to actually gain focus, so take that number with a grain of salt, or probably a 2 or 3 or 10. Alright. Our agent. Solid, you know, good scout, good action economy with the whole perfect plan or quick feed shenanigans, and especially once we got to Shadow Meld and be able to reconcile, that worked out really nice. Very often I play them as pure knife builds, like running an SMG for extra mobility, but since we had trench gun, we were going with a shotgun, and that worked out fine. But I think there's multiple builds that work here, like especially this is a little bit of a long-term payoff, because until you get Lightning Fang and later on then Shadow Melt, you don't have a way to reset your run and slice cooldown. So I can definitely see picking up an early Lacerate just to have it more active early game and being able to run and slice more often. There's also the Sniper Agent build, which I've heard good things about but never really played with. So something for the future to eventually get into. And also, if you're not doing quick tap, then just being able to run and slice in and then double tap with shotgun is also an immense potential, but then of course you're giving up the possibility to reconcile. Quick check here, 30-90, solid ratio. Alright. Next up, Skirmisher. Now, of course, since we fairly certain we did start with the Skirmisher. Of course, the Skirmisher saw a little bit more action maybe than others. In fact, this is the highest mission count soldier. And yeah, spec-wise, it's just... I don't see myself ever deviating from the spec on the Skirmisher at the moment. I think they're really strong. The like both Reckoning and Burial Blade giving you strong positioning abilities, being able to get onto the flanks, to take hit and run. I think very low combat intelligence kind of hindered us a little bit. Also, we didn't get the best XCOM row. Like, if you can pick up Marauder on the XCOM row, it's a fantastic addition to take more benefit from the extra actions from Reflex. But I mean, heavy hitter plus 2 damage on all attacks also kind of paid off well. I was even considering picking up Eat This before the final mission, but ended up not taking that. And with him being the soldier with the most missions, we also come in to one of the two soldiers that have over 100 kills, 138. So more than 4 kills on average per mission. Not the highest kill count, and also not the highest mission to kill ratio, but certainly up there. Next up, the Marksman, and we were trying out a build that I also played on the previous streamed campaign, where we had the strike rifle and we're using the automatic overwatch you get from the strike rifle to then, with cool under pressure, get some accurate overwatch shots, which worked really well in the early game, and I think it fell off hard in the late game. Especially, I have to say, in the final mission in Waterworld, it was almost disappointing how poor it was, because there's very little outside of Predator in terms of aiming bonus. Like, you don't have something like Impulse, where you get extra aim from moving, or something like Shadowborn, where you get extra aim if the enemy is outside of your vision. So if you can't flank the enemies, or if you're trying to fight unflankable enemies that have some extra defense, you're just going to be sitting there and just relying on your aim stat and hoping that somebody holo-targeted. Also, the fact that the snapshot, or rather the no-scope shot itself, is not able to crit, you're kind of losing out on a lot of potential. I still liked it very much early game, but as I said, like end game, especially final mission performance, didn't feel amazing. There is also a potential like one-shot rifle, like the auto long rifle builds, with running on empty, similar to what we were running on the Hunter, and that's definitely an alternative. And I think there's also a fairly decent knife build here that you can run. Now, one thing, and I've talked about this with Captain Petrock already, where I'm thinking like the whole way Eagle Eye works, and I think I mentioned it also in the campaign, is something just I don't personally like, because it's a little bit of an interface problem, where you have 5 tiles additional vision, and it's like, it breaks the standard rule of, if you can see me, I can see you, and the line of sight preview, you move to a spot where you can see the enemy, but you don't know, can the enemy actually see me from that spot? Because maybe I only see them because of my additional vision, or maybe they're gonna be in range and can shoot back at me. It's a little bit clunky. So not a fan of the Eagle Eye mechanics at the moment. But on the other hand, they're kind of a part of the class, so hard to say what the best solution is. Kill count, just over 3 kills per mission, not terrible. 83 kills, definitely solid. And, 25 missions also tells me I brought her a fair bit. Alright, pure support specialist. Specialist, not much to say here. I think that was just mostly also a necessity, since with the Highlander restrictions, only having 1 soldier per class, we have a limited amount of hacking and officer capable classes, so that was just the spec we were kind of forced into. Still hating Modgem a little bit for making me pick between Trojan and Field Surgeon, but I'm kind of always happy to have Trojan. Yeah, not much else to say. So there's always the discussion of specialists just being outright worse than a Dragoon, because they don't get the stealth and the hacking skills are worse, and then the Dragoon actually being worse than the Hijacker. I think there's a place for each of those classes, and I think especially with like the now buffed or changed combat protocol, there's definitely some room for a little bit more offensive play, also with capacitor discharge. Yeah, I think we were one of our first field commanders, and of course, as an officer, you don't get a high kill count, but 25 missions tells me you are not a hindrance to the team. Yeah, other than that, of course, there's an Overwatch spec for specialists. And some people like to spec the top row, whatever. Alright, Arsonist. Arsonist is always a class where I'm never really sure which spec to go with, but often end up with this kind of way, which is like a more mobile flanking, hopefully critting and doing some damage kind of spec. I guess in this case also with anatomy thrown in and our insane mobility. And I think also getting the Valkyrie armor that allowed us to airdrop anywhere on the map really made the class shine. So that was really fun to play around with. There's some perks here that I've basically never taken, and I think there is some room for some sort of overhaul or change up of the class. But other than that, it's kind of solid. Like, suppression being the guaranteed burn kind of helps. It suffers a little bit from the attack being a hit roll, but you're not able to actually see the hit chance before you make the decision to attack or not. So I think we saw that on the final mission, where some attacks against like Archons that were just next to me or close to me just flat out missed, but you don't know that beforehand. So that's one thing, similar to the breath attacks on the Bishop, that I don't like. Like, I want to make an informed decision, because I think that's the biggest skill factor on XCOM, you know, making smart decisions, and you can only make these decisions if you have the information to make that decision. But yeah, decent kill count, 28 missions, definitely fun to play around with. Alright, who's next? Our Hunter. Yeah, the single long rifle build. It takes a while to get online. Running on MT used to be, I think, Tech Sergeant, maybe even Staff Sergeant, and then there was a patch at some point where it was moved to Gunnery Sergeant, so it's a little bit of a stretch to get there, but then it's really strong, and in the final mission especially, we had some really great shots, simply because between Shadowborn and Impulse, you get 25 aim and crit on every shot, as long as you stay outside of the enemy vision range, plus high base aim that gives really good shots against enemies. Oh yeah, and shooting sharp. 15 aim and fire against units in cover. We had almost 100% shots against units in full cover, because we have like 40 extra aim from that. So yeah, very accurate, very high damage, but of course, at least until you reach Gunnery Sergeant, a little bit clunky. We did have the advantage of having a few people with resupply, so being able to use that instead of the running on empty reloads. I haven't. It's been a while. I think we played with a melee hunter once, but it's been a while, and I think this is such a unique kind of way to make use of the auto long rifle that it's my go-to spec. Now, you could say, if you have reliably your hunter always with somebody with resupply, you could consider just forgetting about running on empty and just going for even more damage, but I think that's overkill. Like, this weapon is already doing so much damage that it's not necessary. And yeah, that's exactly 3 kills per mission. It's a really strong performance. Alright, one of the lower ranks, the Rook. I'm not even sure, let me just see. We had 9 missions with you, and you barely made it to Sergeant. It's kind of like, it always feels a little bit weird to me, with Shield and the Assault Rifle. I think there are some interesting specs here, but since I only got to Sergeant, and I'm not sure if we had a higher rank Rook in the previous campaign. I think I'm gonna hold off on saying too much about this because I just didn't get enough experience with it. I think one of the problems is that you start with Protect and Serve, but if you don't remember that and you F1 your soldier during a mission, you don't see Protect and Serve in your ability list. And so like, do I have it? Do I have it not? So in general, you know, moving with also shield stability, giving you more aim and crit, moving, Protect and Serve, shooting, sounds good on paper. But it's still just an assault rifle, right? And a single shot from assault rifle does fairly little, I want to say. There is also an Overwatch spec, but again, rapid reaction on Master Sergeant, so it takes a long time to get to the point where it pays off. Alright, moving on. Oh, Roboticist. So we went with, like, I've played in the past with Roboticist with the top row, being like a shotgun class, and they get really strong aim and strong damage against robotic enemies that way. That's really a nice robot killer. But it's interesting that we basically played a support gremlin spec here, with damage from Chaining Jolt, Caustic, Combat Protocol, and then later on Winter and Capacitor. Like, there's a lot of gremlin damage abilities. But normally you would think Gremlin spec would be an officer role, but we didn't go into officer at all, because, you know, all of these, with the exception of airdrop and resupply, are turn-ending abilities. So you kinda not great on the officer front, but I think it worked. I think it actually was helpful. And, you know, I'm still dreaming of the perfect Chaining Jolts. Maybe we got close to it a few times, but there's definitely a lot of potential here, and it's a fun class to play. It plays definitely different from any other classes. It's using that little gremlin offensively almost every turn. It's just a fun way. Not necessarily a way that gets you tons of kills, but yeah. Worked for me. I'm curious, again, like, I've played the shotgun spec. I'm curious to see how you would play this as a full supporty phantom kind of officer, so similar to a hijacker. I feel like the only downside on that spec is then that you're just losing out on actually 2 of your baseline abilities, right? You're not using Slugshot, you're not using Combat Protocol, you're just sitting in stealth the whole mission. And at that point, you're like, I'd rather be a hijacker. Right, or scout, who was not scouting at all, but pretty much just a sharpshooter, death from above sharpshooter, except for steady weapon. He just hunkers down and gets his aim and crit from that. Felt very similar to the sharpshooter. Of course, Shadowborn giving a huge bonus to aim and crit. I think we got lucky with double tap. Like, double tap being in here, and like, this is normally a Master Sergeant XCOM ability. Being here felt really strong and kinda made this all pop. We didn't really take advantage of Phantom because, you know, we're just not scouting, we're just sniping. I think there's an interesting stealth build here somewhere that I never really got to use. Something I want to do in a future campaign. Having a pistol shot that reconceals you and then getting like shadow strike damage on shots. Liquidator. And we've seen Liquidator in action. That's a really strong perk. Yeah, something to use in the future. And then they'll also have a running on empty auto long rifle shot. So Scout definitely a versatile class. That's fun to use. The Gunslinger. The kind of underperforming class until you got to Liquidator, and then suddenly it feels completely broken. The amount of kills you can rack up by just, you know, finishing off all the low health enemies is kind of nuts. Until we got to that point, though, it sometimes felt like dragging along somebody who was just leeching off the rest of the team. It's maybe a little bit harsh putting it that way, but yeah, it's just, especially the early game pistols, like a laser pistol or so, just feels like you're throwing rocks at the enemy or wet noodles. I'm not sure if this is the best way to go around the business here. I think there's definitely some opportunities for other abilities to improve everything here. Especially like this is always a thing where I'm not sure. Do I want 2 damage, but only if I'm flanking, or do I just take 1 damage on all shots? Like, this is a tough decision. And I don't think I've ever played a Gunslinger as a full holo targeter. Because also they kinda don't have a full holo targeter. Builds. Okay. But kill-wise though, almost 3.5 kills per mission. That's actually not terrible. And again, I don't think we had too many missions at Master Sergeant yet, so it's not like inflated by Liquidator just yet. No, that's the wrong button. Alright, keep on scrolling through. Marauder, I think that was probably also like 7 missions, 7 kills. Too little to say anything about it. Having 2 weapons kind of amplifies our lack of melee weapons though, so, you know, if you're already low on upgraded weapons and then one soldier wants 2 of them, you're gonna be like, yeah, nah. You're gonna stay at home and 2 other people get to go. But yeah, I think I've played too little here to make any informed comment on this. Our Stormrider. Yeah, fun class to play. Feels really strong, of course, once you get Windcaller's Fury and can have 2 attacks each turn, each attack giving you the bonus movement action, which allows you then also to power up. And that's just a 50% damage boost, right, on each attack. I think there's probably some other ways you can spec this. This is what I like. I think we got some value out of Conduit. Tap on to bot matters no guideline side. Bundle 3 against protective shield. It's 4 damage. Last 2 turns. Yeah, I knew that. Totally knew that with the protective shield. I wasn't surprised when that happened at all. Decent mission to kill ratio. Not much to say. Just carry on. Recon. I mean, holo targeting recon is kind of so the clunky part here, compared to a holo targeting sharpshooter, is you don't have squad sight, so you can only holo target what you actually see. The big advantage opposed to the sharpshooter holo targeter, holo bot, is of course you can carry an SMG, which gives you reduced detection range, and you get covert, which reduces your detection range even more. So you're much more capable scout. It kind of hurts a little bit that you can't pick tracking, but I guess bioelectric skin can make up for that. Yeah, I like this. I think in some previous campaign we played some offensive recons, which you know, have some hit and run, rapid fire. Plays a little bit like a shooty Shinobi in a way. So that's also fun. Middle row, I don't think there's like maybe picking up something here and there, but I think you're giving up basically a holo targeter and you're giving up any offensive potential. So I'm not even sure what you're doing outside of maybe scouting. but I don't think that's good enough. But yeah, definitely solid combo with the whole holo targeting and being an officer. Obviously not great for kill count. But hey, only 18 missions and you made it to Master Sergeant? And almost full officer rank, Major? Okay, not almost full officer rank. Probably needed a bit more time there. But yeah, definitely, again, with the Highlander campaign, we needed the officers, so that was an obvious choice. The Dragoon didn't quite make it to Master Sergeant, even though, you know, as I said before, Dragoon is kind of the better specialist. Although in this campaign, I think what held our Dragoon back was the lack of airdrop. And I really liked my grenades, and having on certain classes more grenades available was more better, especially with both the Quartermaster and our Grenadier, of course, having a lot of offensive potential. Other than that, Dragoon is not a bad class. I think it's just really a matter of maybe you got some injuries, maybe you were stuck in officer training for too long, and that just means you didn't get that many missions. 20 is still a lot of missions. You just didn't get enough kills to level up. What I don't like about the Dragoon is they have a cannon, or they can equip a cannon, but there's not really a cannon spec here. There's very little actual, outside of a blinding fire maybe. That's the only like attack skill in the whole tree, and that's just not enough. Like, if a class carries a cannon, they should have some cannon builds. In my not so humble opinion. It's Combat Medic, the shotgun class that has medic in its name. It's like a shotgun skirmisher a little bit. You know, you got your grapple in there. You don't have hidden run, but you're gonna get close encounters. And yeah, definitely also one of the classes where I liked Shadow Stab. Like, Shadow Stab has kind of is experiencing a new spring here, where more and more classes that punish you for going in there, and where it's like, just pick up Shadow Stab, and then you don't worry about enemy Bladestorm, enemy CCS, or enemy other shenanigans. You just ignore it, go in, put the shotgun on their face, and pull the trigger. Definitely some stuff I want to play around with. Again, the Combat Medic, I think we had now in this campaign, and in the Highlander campaign I played over on Twitch. So I think there's more potential here for interesting specs. Outside of course, nobody cares about the healing spec. No, seriously. This is I don't know, just not good enough. Now, if you take all of this, then you can't do. You're not contributing anyway, and until somebody gets injured, pretty much. And that means, like, I always say, the healing specs are great to heal up the damage that you wouldn't have received if you just brought an offensive spec instead. And I'm not moving from that hill. Like, that's the hill I'm not gonna die on because I didn't bring a healer. So I'm not taking damage. Decent mission to kill ratio. So not terrible. Ninja. Didn't really get too high. So this was a little bit born out of a need to play it differently than in a stream campaign. Like, we had a recent campaign on stream, also with the Highlander restrictions, where I just went for full melee spec. That went fairly well. So here I thought, you know, let's go a little bit more of scouting, because we also didn't have that many phantom classes at the beginning, and, you know, going a little bit into knives, and it kind of felt very mediocre, so kind of fell off. Like, very often I was looking at what do I need for the mission, and I'm like, yeah, not that guy. And yeah, only 8 missions kind of speaks for itself. Not necessarily a class problem, but more a spec not performing problem. Maybe it's also, you know, if you go on scout, just go full scout. Maybe throw an officer in there. That's not even, yeah, that's Stalker. That's not even Phantom. I don't know. It's just, you know, with Shadow cooldown, it's just not good enough for Scout. Like, a Scout needs to have Phantom and be just constantly concealed and not just every 3 turns. Moving on. Buccaneer, fun class. I think we were suffering from injuries and also from the lack of melee weapons that we didn't bring you out more often. Really not much else to say. Didn't quite get to Master Sergeant, and I think there's many different specs that make sense on the Buccaneer. You can go more into the sawed-off shotgun, we can go more into melee, what we did mostly here. It also, what I really like about the class is that the XCOM deck can very often kind of steer you in a certain direction. Like, you can get run and slice here, but by default you're not getting an ability to reset the cooldown of run and slice. But if you have something in the XCOM row which resets the cooldown, then this suddenly becomes a much stronger pick. So I think definitely some XCOM row things that then change your decision on how you build the class, and I think that makes it interesting. Both missions only. But yeah, nothing to complain about here, just probably injuries and other factors that made me not bring you on missions. And it also always depends on when a certain class or soldier joined the campaign, right? So the later you get online, the less likely it is you reach Master Sergeant. Our Combat Engineer. Support Combat Engineer, Combat Drugs Officer, solid pick. Just, you know, ended up not going on too many missions. Again, I don't know if it wasn't... I wish I had more soldier stats. I think there's a mod for that shows you like the injury time and stuff like that. And you kind of see, oh yeah, you were injured for 2 months. No wonder you didn't get missions. There's definitely also a good pseudo assault build here that you can do with shotgun, and maybe then using a different secondary weapon. You know, if you think you can get like an acid launcher or something like that, forget about the whole grenade aspect. Of course, as a support officer that's only there to provide combat drug smoke, you're not getting a lot of kills. But combat drugs is really strong. You know, 20 aim, and then once you get here, an additional 10 aim and 10 crit. That's a huge bonus. That's and that's you can get there fairly early. Top tier holo targeter with the Mark III holo targeting device that you only get from an Andromedon corpse. That is, I want to say 20 aim and crit. So yeah, not even close to the 30 and 10 that you get over here. Well, our Grenadier, naturally. I think this was basically the perfect storm here in the XCOM. And, I mean, Devastation looked great. I'm not sure how big of an impact that made, but bring him on your damage Grenadier is just insane value. You have a 50% chance to crit. And you're usually opening with grenades, so there's what, 6, 7, 8 enemies, maybe more, available on the field, and each just flat out, well, putting half a point of damage on the table to a maximum of +8. It's just nuts. And I know that some people are always like, oh yeah, no, Grenadiers, meh, fall off in the late game, blah blah blah. Shut the hell up. Seriously, I can't hear it anymore. 5.4 kills on average per mission. 146 kills. You know, again, we only have 2 people that have more than 100 kills. So, our Grenadier, or Skirmisher, and everything else is below 100. So she's basically, outside of the Skirmisher, 50 kills ahead of anyone else in the barracks. This was definitely a big factor here. Like, if without Bring 'em On, that kill count is probably a fair bit lower. A fair bit lower, for sure. But what can I say? I mean, this is just really good. And what also definitely helped was the changes to the grenade launcher that were patched into Long War of the Chosen recently, giving us, with the beam grenade launcher, basically full kit. So initially having that hard choice between more damage and more grenades, you don't have to make that choice anymore. It's always more damage because you get the more grenades from the grenade launcher. Actually, I think full kit is kind of, in Mod Jam, currently a dead pick because the grenade launcher already provides that. So don't pick that. It's Contra. Our technical, flamethrower technical, solid, crowd control. I still think technicals definitely have a place, even though, you know, Arsonists have that guaranteed burn suppression thing, and Juggernauts have the insane mobility with takedown. I think technicals definitely benefit from being able to equip an SMG, having that high mobility. And yeah, it takes a little bit longer until you get Incinerator and the increased range, but it's just solid. I like it. And you suffer as any flamer class, really, from you make the big opening, setting 12 people on fire, and then everybody else swoops in and gets the kills. But yeah, definitely a solid class. It's been a while since I played any rocket technical, and I'm not sure I think in Mod Jam, it's just not good enough. Like these special rockets, like the EMP rocket and the Shredder rocket, just pale in comparison to the whole rocket launcher options and the rockets you get there, like a Shred Storm rocket, or even the basic Shredder rocket you can equip. Not the perk, the equipped Shredder rocket, it just basically shits on the perk. And it's not even asking for consent to do that. So like an interesting new, I like the new rocketry in base Long War of the Chosen. By Mod Jam, it's just not holding up. With that, our assault. Didn't see enough missions, so not much to say here. But I mean, assaults are solid. Like, I don't have to sell anyone on assaults. They're a good class. The Crusher. Oh boy. There was a time in my times of playing Mod Jam where I was basically removing the mod that adds the Crusher to the game because I thought the class was so bad I didn't want one of my Gatecrasher people to be the Crusher. But both this and the previously streamed Highlander campaign changed my mind a little bit, and I think a big factor there might just be the Valkyrie armor that comes from the Requiem stuff. This kind of makes up for not having run and gun, and this way you can get in there and reliably get close encounters. And again, the revisit kind of Shadow Stab being really good choice to get in there. Yeah, I think it's a solid, assaulty kind of spec that we're running here. I'm not sure how much value we got out of Fearsome, but other than that, it seems good. I still think there's a lot of perks that are all over the place, like Ice Devastation here. What is even low profile? What? it feels very much all over the place in some regards, but I think for a shotgun spec, if you can reliably get the Valkyrie armors, absolutely works. And yeah, respectable mission to kill count, I'd say. Electrician. Surprisingly strong. Like, especially once we got to Master Sergeant and Electrical Storm being like a single action thing. Like, this is kind of, you know, Gunner can cyclic fire for 3 shots. He can just Electrical Storm twice, and if he kills something, gets thousands to go, gets a 3rd shot anyway. Having insane damage and aim against mechanical units just felt good. I haven't really played enough of the Electrician to get a final opinion on the other specs. I think the shooting spec definitely is a fun way to play, and yeah, very, very gunnery-like. Although, again, takes a while to get online. But once you get power outage, like a guaranteed 2-action stun, well, as long as you hit guaranteed, against mechanical enemies helps a lot. Unless, you know, some modder decides that their mechanical enemies are just immune to stun, then you're just not doing much. Now we're looking 2367. Yeah, that was fun class. Could have played him a little bit more. Certainly having high base aim also helped. Right, Death from Above Sharpshooter. I don't even know what to say. That hasn't already been said about Death from Above Sharpshooters. Solid. Always there to deliver on. Again, I bring my sharpshooters on any missions. I don't care if it's like, oh, it's a guerrilla operation with a fixed evac, you have to run, but sharpshooters more stationary. Nah. Like, Death from Above gives you an action, you know? Good positioning, take a kill shot, you move. Grapple, stay at a new spot, shoot for a few turns, and then double move again. I don't think the movement is ever an issue. So, yeah, pretty much Sharpshooter carries any mission they're on. Very few instances where he was not performing, and I can't really think of any. Moving on. Hijacker. It's, I mean, for me, this is kind of the optimal officer loadout. Like, this is every skill here, well, except maybe Sticky Bomb Protocol, but every skill here really contributes to what an officer needs to do. We got the airdrops, Rescue Protocol, and Resupply. I really got a lot of use out in this campaign. Of course, Stealth Protocol, Reconciling friends, Scouting Report for basically an extra command every 5 turns. It's just the complete officer package. And I don't see myself picking up anything different. There's something to be said about Recon versus Sticky Bomb, but I mean, Sticky Bomb still has the effect of making the shot guaranteed to land. The only downside is it being turn ending, so you can't do other officer stuff. Yeah, and we got a few drones from full override, so that's fun. 28 missions, 11 kills. That says a lot about what you do with your hijacker. Right, heavy. Works surprisingly well in doing what a heavy is supposed to do. Taking that rocket launcher and firing a bunch of rockets at the enemies that damage them or debuff them or just outright disable them. I'm still very much thinking that our good friend the Sarin or the Phosphorus rockets are just too strong. But at the end of the day, like on the network tower, we didn't use that thing at all. But there were a lot of missions that were just won by a rocket that just disables everybody. I don't think I've ever played a heavy in a different role outside of rocket, especially, of course, with Highlander campaign settings and only having one soldier that is heavy. You want to have at least one Buccaneer. So going into a shooty heavy just feels like you're wasting that class potential. There's, of course, unload is a really strong shooting skill. That's not to don't underestimate that. You can do a lot of damage with that, especially if you take like an LMG with the 15 shots or whatever it has in the magazine. That's a lot of damage you can throw at an enemy there. Alright, moving on. Juggernaut. The technical your partner tells you not to worry about. I think takedown probably needs a cooldown. But other than that, solid action economy, using that as a repositioning skill. I think there was one mission where I kind of abused takedown a lot with some teamworks and some commands and stuff, and Emily was just flipping all over the place and taking on enemies and setting others on fire. That's fun. I'm actually, despite the whole issue with you set enemies on fire and other people steal your kills, we still have almost 3 kills per mission. So that's really good. You just never made it to Master Sergeant. I blame it on being bonded with the Buccaneer? I don't know. Or maybe I was just trying to play some other classes. There is also, I think, a fairly strong shooting build with the Juggernaut, and also reasonably strong rocket builds, but I think the heavy does the rockets better, and most other cannon classes do the shooting better. And I hate giving up on a good flamethrower. Blade Shinobi. It's a Blade Shinobi. Could also be an officer, wasn't an officer. Just relatively solid. I think, again, it suffers in... Modgem has more enemies that punish you when you get into melee range. Like, more enemies that have CCS, more enemies that, for example, freeze you when you attack them, or that have Blade Storm, or that are just very resistant to melee damage. So I think Blade Shinobi falls off a bit compared to what they have in base Long War. There's an argument to be made here, again, what I said before, to go into Shadow Step to avoid a bunch of that bullshit, but then you're also giving up the damage from Cutthroat. There's been, I think it must be almost 2 years now since there was a Shinobi rework in Modgem from Kuruka, and I've never gotten around to playing with the top row. With the more, I think this is more a stealthy Recon seal kind of build, and I always wanted to try that, but never got around to it. Next campaign, surely, next campaign. 15 missions, 70 kills. You know what, I gotta say, 15 missions only and almost making it to Master Sergeant is still a good rate. Ranger. Let's just start here. Only 19 missions, more than 4 kills on average per mission. It's just, very solid. I think it was more of a very quickly to Master Sergeant, and then probably I sent her off on covert actions a lot, and just didn't bring her on missions enough. Not because I don't like the Ranger, I think that's just really them as safety nets. I like my Rangers. They're doing damage, they have the mobility with Implacable. And especially also with Burial Shot and Thousands to Go, they can take so many shots each turn. Like, we saw that in the final mission. Even with an Elite Extended Magazine, we're constantly out of ammo because we were taking so many shots and doing so much damage. Wow, Rage is just fun class. Gunner suffered a little bit from being late to the party, I think. I mean, 17 missions, 55 kills, that's a really strong performance. But I think you just got Master Sergeant in one of the final missions there. So that held you back a little bit. Certainly had to improvise a little bit because I didn't have my cyclic fire for the chosen kills, I want to say. I don't think I had my gunner for the chosen kills. And I think we only got to use saturation fire once. But that one saturation fire was satisfying. Moving on. Quartermaster. I think Quartermaster depends a lot on what you get on your multiple XCOM row stuff here. Now, we got the little bit almost perfect storm to turn her into a damage grenadier, right? With needle arsenal and biggest booms. Would have been nice to bring him on, right? Which is the one thing that kind of separated us from being an actual grenadier. Because then again, running gun gives us more actions, and having the total combat, like, it's more a grenade spam class. Instead of having that one grenade that hits like a truck, she was able to spam 3 grenades each turn. Well, as long as the running gun is up. Never got to Devastation for the increased radius. Again, full kit wouldn't be necessary anymore with the new... Oh no, hang on. You don't get a grenade launcher. Yeah, that's the other problem. Well, you get the extra range from total combat. And the extra radius, but you're not getting the buffs from the grenade launcher. So any handheld grenade just falls off by not getting the new grenade launcher buffs. Now, in the current stream campaign, we're currently trying out a no-quarter focused pistol build, and that plays very interesting. Don't have the final judgment on that yet, but also in a recent stream, Captain Petrock mentioned that there's some rework of the Quartermaster coming. Now look in here, 12 missions, only 12 missions, 29 kills, and almost Master Sergeant. Now, again, the 12 missions could just be a thing of, yeah, you got that soldier at Tech Sergeant from a mission reward. So, of course, you had a high rank with low amount of missions. I don't remember when we got the soldiers. So, yeah. Take that mission counter with a grain of salt. Our Spark. I don't think I want to talk too much about this, since there is a new patch with a Spark rework that reinstates a randomized XCOM row and actually allows you to utilize your AP. So I think that's a much more interesting approach to go onto this on the new Spark and Mech Trooper overhaul. So yeah, this worked, but in the future it's going to be completely different because of that new mod. Missions only 40 kills, but I think we often used you to set up kills, right? Holo targeting, shredding, get the enemy low, shoot at the next enemy while somebody else gets the kill. Our Mercenary didn't see too much action, but I already kind of mentioned I generally don't like it, because I think a lot of what makes classes and leveling up classes and speccing up classes interesting is having to make choices. And with there not being a choice and you just get everything, and the only choice is what weapon do I bring to the mission. So it's not you're just making a choice for the mission, you're not making a choice for the campaign for this soldier. And then the ranks where you actually get to make a choice are kind of very meh and not really impactful perks. Oh, maybe untouchable, but it's like, yeah, of course take untouchable. So, not a fan. Not a fan of Mercenary, even though, again, we didn't get too high. It's somehow interesting to have this kind of versatility, but I think it goes against the whole idea of having to commit to a spec, even something like having to commit to training up a certain rookie to be a certain class at the start of the campaign in your guerrilla tactics school. Just make everyone a mercenary and they can be whatever class they want to be. Feels weird. Alright. You still only made 7 missions, 3 kills. Okay. Moving on. The Overlord. I think there was a rework of the Overlord. So everything here is outdated, probably. Although I like the shooting spec, but no point talking too much about it if it's going to be changed. There is the whole Eagle Eye thing that I already mentioned with the Marksman, where I just don't like how the perk works. I think Eagle Eye is no longer part of the class in the rework, though, if I remember correctly. But yeah, something I'll have to take a look at in a future campaign. The Reaper. Yeah, I'm stubborn, and I think Banish is too strong. I'm not even sure if it's too strong. It's too strong in certain situations against certain enemies. Like Banish is the boss killer, and I'm not sure that's healthy for a game having a boss killer ability on a single class. You end up bringing your Banish Reaper like on every chosen stronghold. You bring them on the big important missions. You bring them against alien rulers. And that's why we try to do something different. But I'm not sure Death Dealer really works unless you get the support from the XCOM row, which we didn't get. You just need more crit chance. You need the guaranteed crits, right? Otherwise, Death Dealer is just gonna be too much of a gamble. And if you don't get the crit, you don't get the massive bonus, you don't get the kill, so Silent Killer doesn't proc, and you're just sitting there looking like a fool. There's also, of course, the whole idea of the Rocket Reaper, which, again, it's strong. I think it's even stronger than the Heavy as a rocket class. But at the same time, it amplifies the problem again with the Sarin and Phosphorus rockets just being too dominant a little bit. So I'm kind of trying to avoid the Rocket Reaper. Even trying in the current campaign over on Twitch, we're trying to build a Knife Reaper, and it's terrible. It's so awful. So bad. Anyway, 15 kills. No, 15 missions, 40 kills. Alright. Moving on. Saboteur. I really like the playstyle. I like quick feet and, trying to get as many actions per turn as possible and, reconceal and press this button and conceal again and doing some solid damage in the process. Of course, Predator helping. Blend is an excellent pickup that we got here for even more quick feed action. I have a lot of fun with this class. We did get the Mimetic Skin Gene mod, and I think we barely got any use out of it. So I feel like it's super strong on paper, but it ends up either you get it so late that you barely run any missions with it, or on those missions where you have it, maybe I was not aggressively enough taking advantage of it. But I think if you plan ahead with Mimetic Skin, you can definitely skip Conceal, pick up Bullseye for even more insane damage. Yeah. fun stuff you can do here. I'm not a fan of the grenade saboteur at all. I think it's the idea being focused around grenade trap, but I don't think grenade traps work all that well, so it kind of falls off for me. Also, again, not having a grenade launcher, you don't benefit from all the recent buffs to that, so yeah. Only 70 missions, but 53 kills. I thought I would have used you more. Right, Denmark, our MEC Sniper. We played exactly one mission with the MEC Sniper. So I'm not gonna say anything about it, but we played MEC Sniper in the past. They're really solid. Of course, I'm using the mod where the ammo thing only gives one shot of ammo for each turn of the what is it there? The weapon mount. But yeah, it's okay. It works fine. Like it's solid. I shoot you, I kill you class. And yeah, I wanna play more MEC Sniper in the future, especially with the reworked MEC trees. Gotta see how that looks out in the new version. Right, Geneva, we didn't rank up too high. You can definitely do a lot of stuff with the grenade spam, but it also goes to show that, yeah, you know, it's fun throwing gas grenades and acid grenades around, but at the end of the day, it's all about the fire grenades and actually being able to control the enemies and taking away their actions. So yeah, I think it's again too few missions to actually make a final judgment here. Though we did have in the previously streamed campaign, I refer to that way too often, we had a full rank middle row Geneva, which was fine. Again, it's not the class, it's the grenades. Like acid and gas grenades are just not as great. And even though also heavy hitter +2 damage to all your attacks, yeah, except if you look at the small print, it just +1 on the damage takes from your dots. So still good, but not as good as you first think when you see the perk. Destroyer. Yeah, too few missions to actually have a final opinion, and in the interest of time, we're just gonna skip over you. Templar. We only had 13 missions, 38 kills, and I was really, you know, I think Ionic Storm, Storm Force, Niven Capacitor is gonna be insane damage, but we didn't quite get there. 1 XP short of Master Sergeant. Yeah, I'm looking forward to a campaign where I'm starting with a Templar and can get there a little bit earlier, but then it's a gamble if you get Storm Force or not. Like 40% more damage on lightning attacks. Ionic Storm is just, it's gonna be insane damage numbers. Like to a point where you think it's kind of broken. But, you know, broken can be fun sometimes. Moving on. Pyromaniac. It takes some getting used to the whole combustion effect. The first time you fire your emulator, you will refund the action used. That is a fun way to play around with, and I think we got fairly late into the emulator, into the pyro, so definitely class I want to play around with more. It might be a little bit. It's basically a no cooldown quick burn, which sounds a little bit nuts. And hey, just for completeness, if we ever made it to Gunnery Sergeant, we also get quick burn on top of that. So we can fire twice and then still run to safety. Yeah, that definitely another nice flamethrower class that can do some serious work here. The only downside being, you don't have the flamethrower suppression that an Arsonist gets. So if you can't get the flank, or if the enemy is not flankable, you're gonna lose out on a bunch of stuff here. Bion. think I mentioned that in some of the missions where we had the Scion out, where he really suffers from joining later in the campaign and being lower rank. So his Psi rating is also lower. So all his Psi-based attacks have a really poor hit chance against the enemy. And I think that kind of makes you suffer a lot. Like if, you know, half of your attacks just can't be used because, you know, it's like, oh, 54% chance to hit the guy, or you do nothing. It just sucks. Like, and you can't really overcome that. Like with a bad shot, you can always say, okay, I destroy the cover, or I reposition, or I use holo targeting, and there's nothing you can do to make this better. Right? You can't lower the enemy Psi defense unless there's a hacking tower with the Psi reduction hack reward, which is not something you can plan around with, of course. There's of course the shooting spec, which is I mean, surefire shot, yeah, 2 enemies per mission you can guaranteed set on fire, great. And if you suffer through it and get all the way to Master Sergeant, then you can suddenly, you know, teleport around, rapid fire fools, and with recharge, resetting your teleport cooldown, you're just gonna be all over the place. I'm still not sure that's enough though. Like if there was also some way to pick up hidden run on top of that, then you can suddenly really, you know, teleport to a flank, hidden run, rapid fire, it's 3 attacks per turn. Suddenly you're alive. But yeah, I don't know. I'm not like there is like this Imposed Manos is a fairly decent buff, and we played around with some more buff focused build, and that's okay. But I'm not a big fan of the class just yet. Maybe it just hasn't ticked yet. Talking about not a big fan of the class, there's the Knight. In this campaign, certainly, with 0 missions and 0 kills, there was not much to show. Moving on. Guerrilla, we really tried to make it happen, right? We were chasing that ideal trench gun opener, and I think we got it once on that supply rate. Of course, the class, I'm fairly certain the class was released, was only just recently in terms of this campaign released. I think like halfway through the campaign, the class was put on the workshop and we picked it up. So, of course, a little bit late joiner in the campaign. And I think there's a lot of potential here. And yeah, curious to just play around more with the Guerrilla and see how they perform. We got, yeah, 2 missions with the Commando. It's like same thing that you said before, you know, combat drugs is just a really strong buff. Now you don't get the additional buff perk, but you get a lot of gas grenades, so you can be a little bit more liberal with just throwing around those combat drugs. You also have rapid deployment plus salvo, so you can throw out a lot of smoke per turn. And it's kind of, you know, by my command is a really strong officer ability. It kind of, you know, all comes together to a great officer spec. But everything else about the class is kind of meh. But yeah, as an officer, fantastic. I just don't see myself ever building anything else but an officer out of a commander. Stormtrooper, one of my favorite classes. We got our Stormtrooper very late in the campaign, so we only took her out on 2 missions. Still did a good amount of work there. But yeah, definitely one of my favorite classes to play with. Plays very similar to Skirmisher, and you know, if they're both there from the start of the campaign, you would expect a similar performance there. Greta, I don't think had any missions, so I'm not gonna say anything about you. I think we come in, and that's it. That's true. Actually surprised. Did it just skip over all our rookies? Probably. So yeah, and that's yeah, we're back at the beginning. That's the campaign. That's all the classes we had. Yeah, I think it just skipped over rookies. Interesting. Oh, because they don't have a perk tree. So yeah, that's it. We're gonna leave you with a look at the kill leader for this campaign. And I'm fairly certain even after Waterworlds, that's still gonna be the same. So yeah, those are my random ramblings and thoughts about the classes. It's, again, the restriction of the Highlander campaign and only having one soldier for each class makes for some interesting choices, makes for definitely some perks or specs you might not usually take. More of a necessity that you need another hacker or you need another stealthy scout. And, you know, I just like that way of playing the game, instead of just building it same 10 classes and not using anything else. Do we have too many classes in general in the pool? Maybe. Like, there's a bunch of classes we didn't even see this campaign. So we'll have to see. For now, I want to call it here. Thanks for joining along in this campaign, and yeah, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.